Hey, welcome to today's Holy Week devotion. This is Holy Monday, and we're looking at Luke chapter 19, verse 41 to 48. Why don't you have a look at that? Even pause the video if you want to, and then we'll have a look at some of these verses a bit more closely. We're looking at Jesus driving the money changers or the marketers out of the temple courts. I was giving a talk many years ago at a school, and while I was talking about Jesus at this talk, one of the students stood up and stopped me and said to me, Jesus isn't as great a guy as you're telling us. And I said to him, why do you say that? And he said, because he lost his temper and he drove the money changers out of the temple. That wasn't a very well-behaved thing to do. And some sort of divinely assisted answer came to me, and I said to him, well, how would you feel if you came home and a bunch of strangers had turned your house into a flea market? Wouldn't you be angry? And certainly there was a righteous anger by Jesus being displayed here. But the question, of course, is why did he show that anger? Why did Jesus show this kind of righteous anger in the temple courts? You see there in verse 45 and verse 46. When Jesus entered the temple courts, he began to drive out those who were selling. It is written, he said to them, my house will be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. It is written, Jesus is quoting from the Old Testament, Jeremiah 7:11 and Isaiah 56 verse 7. Jeremiah 7:11 is quite ironic because Jesus is complaining that they turned the temple into a 7-Eleven. But interestingly, if you read the whole verse of Isaiah 56 verse 7, you will see there this promise that the temple would be a place for all nations to come. These nations I will bring to my holy mountain and give them joy in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. For my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. That's the context of Jesus' quote when he's driving these money changers out of their flea market. And the significance is that this market is set up in the court of the Gentiles at the temple, the very place where the Gentiles were allowed to come and worship the God of Israel. But it had been occupied by commercialization. And so the Gentiles couldn't come and stand there and pray to God. And that's what Jesus is getting angry about, that this commercialization had prevented people from coming to pray, prevented the nations, the Gentiles, from coming to pray. Now, on the one hand, we could say, well, commercialization gets in the way of religion all the time. That is true. It's Easter season, and you'll see all the Easter eggs in the shops. And it is unfortunate, same with Christmas, that often the true gospel is obscured by chocolate. That is the sad reality of our money-making world. But of course, there is more to what is going on here than Jesus' anger at the commercialization in the temple. And this eviction didn't really change anything long-term. The next day, I'm very sure those money changers and flea market runners were back in the temple courts again, doing their business again. So this is way beyond what Jesus just did at that one event in the temple. This is pointing to something far more significant and the very reason for Jesus' mission to Jerusalem, that he has come to ensure that access to God for all the nations would be opened up. And not just one afternoon at the chasing away of the money changers, but a far greater purging is about to happen. And that is the purging of our sin, which removes the ultimate obstacle between us and God. And Jesus takes that upon himself at the cross. Why? So that all nations could come and have access to God and worship him. This Holy Week, remember this, that Jesus went to the cross to open the door for you and people from all nations to worship God. And that is something worth praising him for.